I had an ordinary family, 2 children, a loving wife, my own home, and a stable income. It would seem that what could go wrong? It seemed to me that there were no more problems in my life that could ruin my day. But how wrong I was. No matter how absurd it may sound, nature has helped me uncover the most terrible truth for every man: cheating wife. In the South, do you grasp the distinction between a tornado and a divorce? Not really. In either case, someone's losing a trailer. Robin Williams. My academic background includes forensic science with a PhD in molecular biology. Initially, I conducted laboratory research for the FBI and later served as a pathologist at a prominent hospital. However, disillusioned with corporate structures, I ventured into entrepreneurship at the age of 40, establishing my own venture specializing in DNA analysis. Under the banner of RHT Labs, short for Robert Henry Thomas, I offer court-sanctioned DNA testing services to government entities, corporations, legal practitioners, and individuals. My scientific inclination was inherited from my mother, while my business acumen stems from my father. While not excessively affluent, I've managed to establish 3 laboratories in a major Midwestern city, and am thriving. My wife, Melissa, nicknamed Liz, was my college sweetheart. We met in the middle of our sophomore year and quickly became exclusive. She majored in biology and secondary education. 6 months after we graduated, we got married during the break at the end of my first semester of grad school. Liz worked as a teacher at the local high school. We were deeply in love, surviving on a diet heavy in ramen noodles, and off to a promising start. 4 years into our marriage, we welcomed Tracy Lynn. 2 years later, RST2, or Hank as we affectionately called him, joined our family. While Liz enjoyed motherhood, she also continued to work as a substitute teacher in our school district. Eventually, she returned to teaching full-time when Tracy was in 3rd grade and Hank was in 1st. By the time the kids were 12 and 10, I transitioned to private practice. The first year was challenging, with long hours and staff turnover, until I found the right team who shared my work ethic and valued good compensation and benefits. They quickly realized they were working for an owner who held himself to high standards. Now, at 47, my world revolves around marriage, kids, work, and our lake cottage. We purchased the lake house about 10 years ago. It needed significant renovation, but we got it for a good price and enjoyed working together to fix it up. During summer break, Liz and the kids spent the majority of their time there, while I reduced my work week to 4 days in June, July, and August to savor long weekends with our beloved family. Throughout the years, our marriage has experienced its share of highs and lows. While the highs have predominated like any typical couple, we have our occasional disagreements. Both of us can be stubborn, yet our conflicts seldom endure for more than a couple of hours. We both dislike being at odds with each other, so we swiftly acknowledge our faults and reconcile. No marriage is flawless, but I wouldn't exchange mine for anything. That is, until recently. Tracy was embarking on her 2nd year of college, signaling that Hank would soon follow suit in the fall. We were all eagerly anticipating our summer retreat at the lake house, recognizing that our time as just the 4 of us was dwindling. Tracy had a boyfriend, and although neither Liz nor I deemed him the one, we understood that it wouldn't be long before she introduced someone special to us. We welcomed the idea of our family expanding, but cherished the moments we still had with our intimate circle. As late spring arrived, Liz had devoted the past 2 weekends to preparing the lake house for the upcoming season, a tradition she upheld since we acquired the property. It provided her with solitude to perfect the cottage to her liking, while also affording a few evenings to unwind with a book and some wine without disturbances from her husband and children. Meanwhile, the rest of us at home had our own traditions, such as attending early-season baseball games in St. Louis or Chicago. On the past few Sunday evenings, when Liz returned from what she referred to as prep and scrub weekends, she appeared somewhat off. I couldn't quite pinpoint it, but my wife was clearly not herself. By the 2nd Sunday with her in the same mood, I inquired about her well-being. She snapped at me. a rare occurrence, and stormed out of the room. What on earth? I thought, giving her space for a couple of hours. As we settled into bed later that night, she apologized for her behavior. I'm sorry, Henry, for being harsh earlier. Please forgive me for my rudeness. Of course, Liz, I replied. I apologize if I did something to upset you. I was just worried because you seemed a bit off. I'm fine, Henry, she replied, avoiding eye contact. I suppose I'm just a bit tired from all the work at the lake. All right, sweetheart. How about a back scratch? That would be perfect, she purred. Liz absolutely adores having her back scratched. After a brief period of innocently stroking her back, my hands began to explore. We're still very physically affectionate and lively. Sometimes our kids catch us grinning and holding hands over breakfast, prompting Tracy to playfully chide us with TMI or, please get a room and spare us. Hank just blushes and chuckles. Typically, when she returns from the lake, she's in the mood. However, tonight, when I tried to initiate, she didn't even turn over, just sighed deeply and said, "Thanks for the back rub, babe, but not tonight, okay?" I wasn't taken aback. I've been turned down plenty of times, like any normal husband. But given our recent busy schedule, it had been over a week, which did surprise me. Unfortunately, I'd soon discover why. Living in the Midwest means living with the constant threat of tornadoes. Similar to earthquakes in California or hurricanes on the East Coast, people in our region are well aware of twisters and their destructive potential. In spring, it's not a matter of if, but when and where. This year, it was our turn. A Category 3 tornado boasts winds up to 165 mph, while Category 5s can reach speeds exceeding 200 mph. On Monday night, right after Liz came back from her second cleanup trip, a Class 3 storm hit half a mile from where we live. I immediately called our neighbors by the lake, Eric and Bev Parson, who lived about 100 yards away from us. They were retired and spent the whole year at the lake. Eric picked up on the second ring. Henry, that was quite a storm that passed through here. Are you and Bev all right, Eric? Is there anything I can do for you? We're fine, Henry. Thanks for asking. Nothing majorly damaged around us. I quickly checked your place. There are a couple of broken windows and a lot of debris scattered around, but nothing serious. The rain has stopped, so I'll board up your windows in the morning. No need for you to hurry down here tonight. Thanks, Eric. I'm glad you both are okay. I'll be there first thing in the morning. I'll bring over a dozen Krispy Kreme donuts as a token of my appreciation. Don't bother spending your money, Henry. Bev will just find them and make me throw them out. She has a nose for unhealthy food from miles away. It drives me crazy sometimes. Well, maybe I'll just bring a couple and keep them at my place. I'll give you a call when I arrive if I need a hand. That might just work, Henry. Good night. See you in the morning. I informed the office that I wouldn't be present for a couple of days. In reality, they probably managed to accomplish more in my absence. My assistant, Shelby, expressed uncertainty about how they would manage without me, but assured me they would make do. Liz offered to take time off to assist me, but once I explained that the damage wasn't severe, she opted to stay home and work instead. We were also mindful that leaving an 18-year-old high school senior alone for a couple of days could lead to trouble. I headed to the lake and spent the next few days cleaning up and arranging for the installation of 3 new windows. Eric came by to lend a hand, and I reciprocated the favor. As for any indulgence in Krispy Kreme donuts, my lips are sealed. By Wednesday afternoon, most of the major cleanup was done. Liz had placed the trash can by the mailbox before leaving on Sunday, expecting pickup on Tuesday. However, due to the storm, its contents were scattered across the yard, and the bin itself had blown down the street. After retrieving it, I began the final task of refilling it with the debris that had blown across the lawn. I was almost done when I noticed what looked like a zip-up bag at the other end of our yard. Upon closer inspection, it really turned out to be a transparent plastic bag with discarded clothes. Although there was nothing unusual about it, the contents were alarming: a bathing suit, a blouse, and a pair of panties. When I opened the bag, I was struck by a powerful mixture of odors, in which the unmistakable smells of human sweat and other bodily secretions persisted for at least 3 days. Considering my profession in the field of DNA analysis, the smell seemed strangely familiar to me, reminding me of our laboratory environment. After examining the blouse, I noticed that 4 of the 6 buttons were missing. There were white spots on both the swimsuit and the panties. My stomach twisted as I tried my best to suppress the urge to vomit. But in the end, I failed. How could this happen? Liz and I hadn't been to the lake since Thanksgiving weekend, and even then it was a family event with no hint of intimacy. I suddenly realized that these things could not have been in the bag for more than a few days. Suddenly, an almost 25-year marriage based on love and devotion was deeply shaken. I took my new belongings out to our deck, settled in, and compelled myself to contemplate. It was evident that Lise would have anticipated my absence by the lake until Tuesday morning, when the garbage collection occurred. There was no reason to conceal anything since it would be disposed of long before my initial spring visit. But who? Our house was distant enough from Parsons that one could come and go unnoticed. I also remembered feeling that something was amiss with Liz upon her return from both weekends. Was it because she had been with him? How long had she been unfaithful? Was it someone local, or did they just rendezvous here? A colleague? A neighbor? Was he disease-free? Could I have contracted STDs? My head was spinning and breathing became difficult. I struggled to maintain composure, but it was challenging. I was in no condition to return home. After an hour, I found a quick solution. I phoned Liz to explain that there were still tasks to be done and mentioned I had already had a few beers. It seemed wiser to stay where I was for the night and return to town early the next morning. The lake house was just an hour away, so I could wake up at 6 and be back in the office by my usual 8 a.m. "I'm relieved there isn't too much damage," Liz remarked after hearing my plan. "I just wish you were coming home tonight. I wanted to make it up to you for my lack of enthusiasm on Sunday." "Apologies, Liz, but I'll see you at some point tomorrow." "Goodbye, sweetheart." "I love you." "Good night, Liz." I couldn't muster the words to say I loved her back. After a few bourbons, I eventually drifted into an uneasy sleep until 5 a.m. While heading home, I made a few decisions and calls. Firstly, I planned to handle the DNA lab work myself, so I headed straight there to kickstart the process before others arrived. Secondly, I contacted my lawyer, Tom Kincaid, and briefed him on the situation. Lastly, I reached out to a former FBI colleague who now works in the private sector to explain what assistance I required. By day's end, I accomplished 2 out of 3 tasks. Tom and I discussed matters over lunch, concluding that regardless of the circumstances, she would receive 50% of our assets in a divorce. Even if the kids chose to stay with me, her financial situation wouldn't be affected much. "Isn't our system twisted?" I pondered. "You break your vows and still profit financially." Additionally, my friend arranged for state-of-the-art, undetectable surveillance equipment to be installed at the lake house. Although it wouldn't sway the divorce proceedings much, I wanted evidence of her infidelity. I refused to let her paint herself as the victim to our friends and family. If necessary, I'd expose everything on social media. Liz might recover financially, but her reputation within our marriage wouldn't remain unscathed. My third project involved the DNA identification process. It was straightforward to determine Liz's results, but identifying an unknown person took more time. If I was lucky, I might finish by the end of work tomorrow. Upon arriving home, I embraced the kids and gave Liz a quick kiss on the cheek. Everyone was eager to hear about my last 24 hours. I shared the story while they gathered around to see the pictures on my phone. Despite her deceit, Liz seemed concerned about our second home. We all had cherished memories there, having been together for so long. I maintained a steady tone as I spoke, trying to remain composed. As Liz leaned in to look at my phone, her scent filled my nostrils. Normally it would arouse me, but tonight it only made me melancholic. Intentionally, I had captured a photo of the scattered trash in the yard. Before showing it to them, I edited the picture to make the Ziploc bag appear slightly larger in the frame. Even amidst my sorrow, I decided a bit of psychological gamesmanship was warranted. "Just look at all that trash. You wouldn't believe some of the things I had to clean up and bag again," I remarked, lingering a moment longer on that image. I sensed Liz tense up for the briefest moment. Later that evening, as we got into bed, Liz reached out to me. I sensed my tension as she placed her arm over me and nestled in beside me. "Are you okay, Henry? What's the matter, sweetheart?" Usually I'd turn to face her and we'd have a close conversation. But tonight, I just lay facing away. "Just exhausted," I fibbed. "All the work at the lake house, then a bit too much to drink last night, followed by an early morning and a long day. Thank you for handling all of that, Henry. I know it was a lot. I should have probably gone with you and helped." "It's all right, Liz, but I do think you should go down next week after you finish school on Monday and double-check that the windows were installed correctly and everything meets your standards. I think we'd all feel better knowing you're there, looking out for our family's best interests." "Of course, Henry. I was thinking the same thing. I'll head down after school. Our last day is a half-day, so I might be back by Tuesday night. No rush, Liz. I just want to ensure everything is as you want it. You're the priority." If she picked up on the subtle hints I dropped, she didn't show it. Her hand started moving lower on my body. "How about I make you feel better, my dear husband?" At this moment, I must take a pause and assert with relative certainty that I've never once declined intimacy with Liz throughout my life. She has perpetually been the epitome of beauty to me, encompassing not only her physical appearance but also her intellect and personality. However, tonight was different. I struggled to hold back tears. "I'm sorry, Liz. I'm utterly exhausted." Her gentle touch halted, and a faint gasp escaped her lips. "Oh, well, of course, Henry, you need a good night's rest. I love you." "Same here," I responded, purposefully omitting love in the hope it would pass unnoticed. As I lay in darkness, the realization dawned that my marriage was likely at its end. I couldn't simply switch off my love for Liz, yet I could never trust her again. It was evident she had found something lacking in our relationship and sought solace elsewhere. She had deceived me and betrayed our family. From now on, every time she left the house, I'd be plagued with thoughts of where she was headed and whom she was meeting. The notion of her spending 4 days a week at the lake house without me was unacceptable. Whoever he was, he had been in our lake house with my wife, possibly in our own marital bed. No, I wouldn't tolerate such disrespect. At 4:30 a.m., I abandoned my futile attempts to sleep. Liz was in a deep slumber as I showered, dressed, and departed for the office. An unusual occurrence for a Saturday, but not entirely unprecedented. Around 7 a.m., she tried calling, but I let it go to voicemail, a departure from my usual behavior. She followed up with a text. "Hope you slept better and are feeling better. I love you." I didn't reply for an hour, finally responding with, "Sorry, been tied up with an urgent last-minute order. I suppose I'll catch you this evening. Still feeling fatigued." I added a heart emoji, the best gesture I could muster given the circumstances. Despite it being the weekend, I rang Tom at 9 and tasked him with initiating the process of drafting divorce papers. Although our state recognized adultery as grounds for divorce, its legal significance was minimal, yet I refused to resort to the cliché of citing irreconcilable differences. I instructed Tom to have everything prepared by the following week. By 3 p.m., I had uncovered the name Kenneth Glenn Lester. It rang a bell, but its significance eluded me until a quick Google search provided the missing context. Les had served as the clubhouse manager at the lake for the past 3 years. In his early 30s, he had a brief stint in prison for burglary during his 20s. Eric had introduced me to him, painting him as a decent young man who had made mistakes in his youth, but was now making the most of his second chance. From what I observed in our limited interactions, Les always appeared courteous during our club dinners. He managed things well and maintained a friendly demeanor with everyone. If anything went awry, Les was quick to resolve it. He seemed to work diligently and intelligently, as far as I could tell. Surprisingly, he had quite an impact on my wife, as she ended up becoming involved with him despite the 12-year age gap. I suppose the thrill of being with a younger man boosted her confidence. I felt uncertain about how to handle the next couple of days until Liz went down to the lake. My sadness gradually morphed into anger, and I worried about losing my temper with her. Fortunately, Hank had a few high school baseball games scheduled for the weekend, so I could attend those in the late afternoons. Liz would likely be at one or both of them. Being together in public would be much easier than facing each other alone at home. I could spend an extra hour or two working in the yard each day without raising too much suspicion. If Liz questioned, I could always claim I was tackling more chores now to avoid a backlog when we start going to the lake house in a couple of weeks. Sleep time would pose another challenge, but there was no chance I was going to engage in intimacy with my unfaithful wife. I had no clue what diseases the other guy might have transmitted to her, and I had no desire for any leftover affection, no matter how much time had elapsed. It was a difficult couple of days. Liz kept attempting to make things right, and even my excuses sounded weak to me. By Sunday night, her disappointment had turned into anger. "I hope you snap out of it by the time I return from the lake house," she spat at me before pulling all the covers to her side of the bed. "Good night." On Monday, I left early without saying goodbye. Hank messaged me while on his way to school. "Dad, I heard Mom crying earlier. Is she okay?" "She's facing some challenges right now, Hank, but she'll be all right." "Okay, love you, Dad." "Love you too, son." I set my phone down and teared up. How did life get so chaotic so fast? Later, after lunch, Liz texted, "Thanks for the heartfelt farewell today. You're acting like such a jerk right now. Be careful on the road, Liz, and I'll see you soon. Don't forget to make sure that everything matches your preferences. That's the most important thing." "Of course," she replied. Later that evening, when Hank was with friends, I connected to the live broadcast from the lake house, which was provided by my friend from the FBI. And here they are, my dear wife and her lover, whom I nicknamed Lester the Molester. They were sitting next to each other on the couch in our living room. Her head was on his shoulder, and he was stroking her hair. "Do you think, Les, does he suspect anything?" my wife asked. "I doubt it, baby. It's only been since last Thanksgiving, and only 8 times. We were extremely careful. I just can't even imagine how he can find out about it. You and I are much smarter than him." "You're probably right, but he's been acting strangely since he came back last Thursday after the storm. He even rejected me 3 times. "Well, let me make up for this lack of attention." Lester grinned, stroking her, putting his hand on her shoulder. "Lester, please. I love the way we spend time together, but I love my husband and our family. I don't want to lose either of them. We both know it's just an affair. This is not love and never will be. And as far as I know, you're probably sleeping with 2 or 3 other wives. You're right, Liz. I don't want to be anything more than just entertainment. But I really care about you, and I don't want you to suffer. By the way, if you don't mind me asking, am I the first person you've slept with out of wedlock? I'm not judging, just curious." Liz was silent for a moment, and I mentally reacted with a shocked, "Wow, it couldn't have been worse. I couldn't imagine this, I wonder." About 5 years ago, there was another incident. It was with the administrator of our district, who was incredibly attractive. I don't know what came over me, but he paid attention to me and I didn't resist. We dated for about 6 months until I came to my senses. To be honest, I caught him with another girl, and it hurt me because he always said that I was the only one he had. I gave him such a slap in the face that I think he saw stars in front of his eyes for several days. Mike Jensen, I thought. That arrogant jerk always seemed so smug around me. Now I understand why. He slept with my unfaithful wife. What a horror. Remember for yourself, never show your bad side, Liz. Yes, and to be honest, I'm also dating Julie Mitchell and Kim Ferguson. I know it doesn't really matter since we're just having fun, but I want you to know that we all don't have any diseases. I'm careful and I get checked out regularly, said the jerk. That's good to hear, stud. I knew about Julie. Kim surprised me a little, considering her innocent appearance. Well, since we both understand that this is just for fun, and I feel like my man has been neglecting me all week, why don't you take me to bed and entertain me, my love? Let's do this for real. My wife said. I turned on the hidden camera in the bedroom and watched for about 10 minutes, which turned out to be longer than expected. I thought it would take no more than a minute. They hurriedly threw off all their outer clothes and headed towards the bed. My beloved wife was at ease, already immersed in the process. She begged her lover, "Yes, that's it, right here, please, it's incredibly pleasant." I turned off the camera, went into the bathroom and thought about it. I texted Tracy on Tuesday telling her that Hank and I needed to talk to her. At noon, I told my children about the harsh reality. It hurt me a lot, but I couldn't embellish the situation or deny the truthfulness of their mother's actions. I was saddened, and tears flowed freely. They also shed tears, but in the end, expressed their willingness to understand and offer their support. I informed them that I intended to give their mother the opportunity to confess to me on Wednesday evening. If she decides to do this, we may have a small chance of reconciliation. Of course, they shouldn't have revealed anything they knew if they talked to their mother. Tracy invited Hank to join us for the rest of the week as he was on vacation at school, and she attended classes at the beginning of the summer before returning home. I admired her caring for her younger brother, despite her heartache. When Liz came into the room around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I was waiting for her in the office. I was sitting in my leather armchair and enjoying a glass of Four Roses single-barrel bourbon. Precise. She slid across the room, dropping her purse, and apparently intended to sit on my lap. I assumed that after her recent intimacy with Lester the molester, she was happy and in a good mood because of her cuckolded husband. I raised my hand to keep her at a distance. She observed the seriousness etched on my face. "What's the matter, Henry?" I gestured towards the couch. "Please, have a seat, Liz. Can I get you something to drink?" "No, I'm fine." "Now tell me, Henry, what's going on?" "Oh my, are the kids all right?" "The kids are fine, Liz. No need to worry about them." I could see her ease a bit upon hearing that positive news. Unfortunately, things would likely take a turn for the worse from here. "Liz, I'm giving you one opportunity, just one. Is there anything you want to disclose, Liz? Or rather, is there anything you're willing to disclose? I'm asking for complete honesty from you, my dear wife, and in return, I'll be completely honest with you. Take your time before you respond." "Henry, what do you want me to say? The lake house is fine, the kids are all right. Until a few days ago, we hadn't had a disagreement in months. Our intimacy has been good. What more do you want me to say?" My hopes for finding a way forward were diminishing rapidly. "Liz, throughout our entire marriage, I've been transparent with you. I've never lied, deceived, or distorted the truth. I'm not flawless, far from it. I make mistakes, but honesty with you has always been paramount to me in our relationship. So, one last time, Liz, is there anything you need to come clean about?" At that moment, our marriage reached its end. "Honestly, Henry, I'm completely lost. I don't understand what you're searching for or referring to." Tears welled up in my eyes. "I'm utterly heartbroken, Liz. Devastated that you regard me and our marriage with such disdain. I'll never comprehend what I did to deserve your betrayal and disloyalty. I believed we were bound together until death, but now I see that's not, and will never be the case. Liz, I know about your affairs with Ken Lester and Mike Jensen, Liz's complexion turned pale instantly. Her mouth hung open as one hand covered it. "Oh, no, no, no," she uttered, barely audible. Louder, she pleaded. "No, Henry. Please let me explain." "Oh, God, what have I done?" "Please, Henry, they mean nothing. Nothing. I love only you." "Really, Liz? You called Michael Jackson damn attractive, if I remember correctly. And on Friday night, you told Lester the molester that your stupid hubby wasn't satisfying you and you needed to replenish your strength to feel like a real woman. None of these statements seem insignificant to me." Henry, how did you find out about all this?" "It's simple, my unfaithful wife. Last week I installed surveillance equipment after I found your soiled swimsuit and panties in a zip-up bag that was blown out of a trash can during a storm. It also had your ruined blouse in it, but I'm sure you can replace it so Lester can rip the other one off you while you devour each other. DNA analysis was simple for obvious reasons." "So you were spying on me and Lester?" "No, Liz. Everything was recorded, but I stopped watching very quickly because it was disgusting to me. As soon as you started this process, I turned off the TV, went to the bathroom, and threw up." Now Liz was crying, unable to meet my eyes. I did not comfort her and did not continue to tell her about her betrayal. I just sat in silence, under the cover of pain that covered my heart like the darkest of nights. After a short while, she began to gather herself. "What actions can I take, Henry? How can I rectify this situation? Please reassure me that we can mend this. I cannot fathom a life without you, our home, our shared world. Please, Henry, assure me there's a way out of this chaos." "There is a solution, Liz, but it doesn't involve us being together. You betrayed my trust, my love, my commitment to you and only you, and you callously disregarded them. I held you dear, Liz, and you trampled on my affection. You ridiculed me as a man and as a husband. Did you truly believe I would tolerate my wife being with other men? Is that what you think of me? I'm sorry you made your choices, Liz, but now I've made mine. The only path forward is apart." With that, I reached down and grabbed a manila envelope, tossing it onto the couch beside her. The label on the package read, "Petition for divorce." "No, Henry, please not this. We must attempt to stay united for ourselves and for our children. For your business and my career in teaching, we can overcome this. I can seek professional assistance. We can undergo counseling. We're resilient, Henry. We can weather this storm." "Liz, let me be straightforward. I'm divorcing you because of your infidelity. You can discard those documents if you wish, but if you do, I'll have my attorney draft another set and serve you at your workplace in front of your students and colleagues. Please spare Hank from that. Regardless of your opinion of me, please consider your son. Henry, your love for me is too strong for you to do that, and I can't bring myself to walk away from 24 years of marriage. Please, let's work together to find a solution that preserves our marriage and our family." "Liz, you misunderstand what real love is. You've confused comfort and security with commitment. Love is demonstrated through actions, not just feelings. You truly love someone when you are faithful, forsaking all others, and prioritize their well-being above your own. Tell me, Liz, how much were you loving Tracy and Hank while you were engaging in affairs? How committed were you to saving our marriage while pursuing other men for purely physical reasons? Your actions reveal your true nature, Liz, as a selfish, deceitful person." "I'll contest this, Henry. I'll fight tooth and nail against this divorce. I refuse to give up on us." I was growing weary of her moral superiority as fury built up within me. "Liz, you're really starting to test my patience. If you want to argue, go ahead. But first, why don't you reach out to the kids and explain the situation? Try to persuade them that you still care about me and our family. And do you know where Hank is? He's probably at school with Tracy, devastated because our family is falling apart. What have you done, Henry? What have you said to our children?" I let out a deep sigh. "Liz, I simply spoke the truth. I told them about your two affairs with different men, one around 5 years ago and another ongoing. Unlike you, I was honest with them. I didn't urge them to hate you or break ties with you. I suggested that if you returned home and confessed sincerely, there might be a slim chance for our marriage. But today, Liz, you revealed your true priorities. You care more about yourself than us. What's going to happen, Henry? I hope we can divorce amicably without turning it into a spectacle. I'd like to leave you with nothing, but that's unlikely in today's courts. However, I'm suing the school district and the club at the lake. It might not lead anywhere, but I want accountability. While you were the main culprit, there were others involved in wrecking our marriage. They were accomplices, and I want them to face consequences. You'll probably fare better financially, at least initially. Custody is irrelevant since Hank will be off to college before anything is settled. I'm not leaving, it doesn't matter if you do. I'm staying in the master bedroom. You can move into the spare room or go live with Lester, the molester, for all I care. If you oppose me on this, Liz, and attempt to portray yourself as the victim, I'll disseminate the recordings of the past 2 days everywhere, starting with your parents, then moving on to your siblings, friends, colleagues, and even your Wednesday pickleball league. I'm not the villain here. I didn't betray trust or destroy my marriage, and I won't try to shield you. From the expression on her face, it was evident that she was finally grasping the gravity of her actions. Her face bore the marks of profound anguish. I'm deeply sorry, Henry. I understand that my actions have wounded you deeply, but could I please ask you to hold me for a moment? I just feel so adrift. I stood up, began to walk across the room, then halted. I'm sorry, Liz, but I will never embrace you again. Liz resisted for some time, but eventually it became unavoidable. The divorce ended up being fairly evenly split. Henry's lawyer, Tom, was proven right. It seemed that straying from your spouse could be rewarded by the courts and the victim punished. Fortunately, since Henry's children were adults, there was no need for child support. His business was prospering, so despite the settlement, he would be financially stable. Liz wanted them to continue owning the lake house together, but Henry disagreed. Eventually, they agreed to establish a trust for Tracy and Hank, with each receiving a 50-50 share. Perhaps one day Henry would revisit the idea of spending time there with his grandchildren, although he had doubts. The legal actions didn't progress much, but Lester was dismissed and driven out of town by enraged club members. The spouses of Julie Mitchell and Kim Ferguson received a small part of the recording where Lester admitted to being involved with them. Both couples ended up divorcing. Mike Jensen experienced 2 brutal attacks after leaving the gym where he regularly exercised. Fearing for his safety, he decided to relocate. Despite investigations, no suspects were identified in connection with the assaults. Henry and Liz sold their house and now reside in separate condos at opposite ends of the town. While Henry has started dating someone new, he remains cautious due to his past experiences. Meanwhile, Liz, who gained a reputation for promiscuity after their divorce, prefers to avoid socializing for the time being. Tracy and Hank maintain contact with both parents, although their relationship with their mother remains strained. Whenever a tornado siren blares, Henry reacts with a sad smile and a shrug, while Liz breaks down in tears. The metaphorical storm within their lives was only truly unveiled when a literal tornado struck.